Hello there and welcome back to Mike's Music Corner, where I do my best to keep things real. If you're joining me for the first time, let me do a quick recap of what's going on here. Several weeks ago, I embarked upon a journey to modify and upgrade this guitar I'm holding right now. This is a Fender Squire Affinity Telecaster, about used and it's a couple years old. I've already done several mods and upgrades to the guitar to date. I'm not going to go back and rehash those here in detail, but suffice it to say I've done several modifications with the fretboard and the neck, and also swapping out all the hardware, replacing the nut, and most recently, and that's what this video is going to be all about, replacing the control panel and the electrical harness. Though I've done several of these mods myself, I can't do them all. For example, last week I had my local Luthier change the nut, and that's what the video was about last week. And this week I had my local Luthier change out the control panel and the electrical harness. That's because I really don't want to get into the whole soldering thing, and I really don't understand the electronics anyway. So I enlisted the help of my local luthier, whom I have introduced to you before, but his name is Sean. So Sean works for our local guitar service center named Chris Fleming Guitars. I'm very grateful for Sean doing some of this work for me. Sean is a fantastic luthier and guitar tech. He takes great pride in his work. He has a lot of attention to detail, and you can just tell he's very passionate about what he does. I want to put a teaser out there. I've decided the very last scene of all my videos, when I get the conclusion of all the videos, 2 or 3 videos from now, when this guitar is completely done and ready to go, I have recruited one of my guitar teachers, his name is Adam, to wrap up this series of videos with a performance for you, playing this guitar, of course. He will be able to pull tone out of this guitar 100% better than I will be able to. I probably will still do the basic tone test to compare against the original tone test I did. He's a fantastic musician and guitar player. He's locally well known around here. He's with a couple bands and he does a lot of teaching. So hopefully that's a big incentive for everyone to tune in at the very end is from a professional. Let's get on with this video where I was on location, as I mentioned, at our local guitar center, and where I will reintroduce you to Sean and let Sean do his thing.
As promised, this is the second time we are on location at Chris Fleming Guitars, where we have a local guitar service center. Last week we had Sean right here. Sean changed a nut on my guitar, kind of modifying, kind of upgrading. So that was kind of interesting. So he had to do a lot of finagling, a lot of magic. Today, this is the second of 3 trips here, and the second trip is all about changing the electronics, changing the electrical harness behind the control panel and the control panel. Today, that's what is on the agenda, and that Sean is going to do for us. Sean, anything you want to add about that?
No, we're going to get into it. So we'll talk about it when we go.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Basically, we've got a really simple situation here. As I understand it, just going to be replacing the controls. We've got a full assembly here ready to go. That's awesome. All we're going to have to do in terms of soldering is disconnect the old pickups and bridge ground from this circuit, remove all that hardware, drop this in and reconnect the pickups to the switch and the bridge ground to wherever we choose. I'm going to get started. That's basically it.
Right. Now, it's my understanding, I'm going to pick your brain here while you get started.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that is that I've been told by multiple guitar people, more than I know, that the second best thing you can do for your tone is what we're doing here today. First being pickups, but for tellies, the electronics.
Yeah, the controls,
the control stuff that can make a significant difference. So
yes, they can.
And this is supposed to be a relatively high quality one I got here. So
yeah, they can make a significant difference. Pedantically, I'll point out the first thing you can do for your tone is always practice.
Yeah. Oh darn!
100%.
No.
Every time.
Well,
but
it's very true.
To that, when
But I just want to make a comment about that before you go.
Yeah, sure.
So.
Go ahead.
Here at Gray Dog and at Chris Fleming Guitars, just so everybody knows, one of my teachers in town I see once a week. His name is Adam. When I always heard in the guitar world that tone is in the fingers, he showed me how tone is in the fingers.
Yeah.
He could take any guitar. I'm pretty sure any crummy guitar makes it sound great. Yeah. I'll probably take any great guitar and make it sound crummy. So to your point, John, I think that's well taken. So.
It's real. Yeah, Adam's a great player, and he's a great example of that kind of thing. It's just the familiarity. You spend a lot of time plucking a string and you start to get pretty good at it. You figure out how to make the string do exactly what you want, and you'd be shocked how much more that has to do with the way your finger, hits the string, or the way your pick hits the string, than it has to do with any of this. There's always the kind of jokes about it, but John Mayer is going to sound like John Mayer on a you know, a Gibson Les Paul, and, you know, Slash is going to sound like Slash
Yeah.
on a Strat,
Yeah.
and it's, you know.
Good point. I like the way you said it.
So
Yeah.
we've got a few things going on here. I'm gonna use their little ground here that they used to ground the cavity. So what we've got here on this guitar is what appears to be a shielded cavity. You had asked about shielding.
Yes.
You know. So if you look in here, you see this black paint. Ostensibly, that's shielding paint. We're gonna test that.
I expect to see like silver foil kind of thing.
That's common as well.
Okay.
Copper foil is
Copper
a
foil,
very
okay.
common thing.
Okay.
That's what I often use for shielding. Paint's great too. I like using both sometimes. You'll find that many production guitars, they paint these cavities, but they don't really properly shield them. It might be shielding paint, it might not be.
Mhm.
And even if it is, they only put one layer, it doesn't do enough. So we're gonna test continuity. I've got my meter set up to beep for continuity. So, you know, I can touch 2 points that are connected by a circuit, we'll get a beep. Okay, I'm touching 2 ends of this cavity and I'm not getting any beeping.
So it's not shielded.
It's not well shielded.
Okay.
Let's touch 2 points close together. No.
No. Okay.
Black paint, not shielded.
Okay. Well, no shock. It's
Yeah.
a Squire Affinity Telecaster.
I'd be really pleased with them if they had shielded this
Yeah,
cavity
right,
well.
right.
Yeah. Basically, I encourage people to play it in their own environment. And if there's actually an interference and noise problem that's often caused by fluorescent lighting or just bad power, irregular power of various kinds, those things can cause noise issues that we could improve with some shielding.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I wouldn't jump to saying we should shield everything until we know we should, because doing it really properly, you can do what they've done here and paint this cavity and stuff. We could use conductive paint and touch it, and it would only be conductive from here to here. From end to end, I like to paint the cavity and lay a strip of copper tape, or just use the copper tape on the entire thing. There's different methods. Actually getting everything properly shielded takes a little more effort than most companies are willing to go through
Okay.
on production guitars.
Okay.
You know, at least at certain price points,
Right,
obviously.
right. Like this price point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You know, so it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, of course we can do it, and of course it's not going to hurt, but it's actually quite a bit of effort for often little gains. So
Yeah.
let's make sure we need to do it
Okay.
before we jump to it.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So all I'm doing is preparing my wires, stripping off a little bit of insulation and twisting them up. Yeah, I'm just, you know, twisting around these wires to wind them up. And now I'm going to do what's called tinning. Got my good hot iron here, got some solder. I'm going to get some on a tip, and I'm going to basically just touch that to the wires and try to get some on there. You can see it kind of soaked it up, right? You can see that we're soldering and I'm over the guitar. And if I drop solder onto that finish, there's a chance that it would leave a mark that would be very difficult to hide or remove. So I'm going to find one of my little covers, just anything. So I'm just getting a little bit of solder into the wires. What this will do, it will speed up the connection when I need to solder these wires to their connections. The heat transfer will happen a lot more quickly because of this solder already being here. That's good for a lot of reasons. It keeps us from burning parts. We've got 2 pairs of wires, one for each pickup. You can see that this white and black pair is running into this hole at the upper end towards the neck pickup.
Yeah.
And then this yellow and black pair is running to the bridge pickup.
And is that typical colors for guitars, those wire colors,
No.
or could they be anything?
They could be anything.
Oh, okay.
Black
Okay.
is pretty common for the ground.
Mhm.
So I assume that the black, in a situation like this, these are ground wires.
Mhm.
We'll confirm that, but it's very safe to assume that. And this last wire is a ground wire that runs to the hardware itself, to the bridge. This will run up into one of these holes or wherever it needs to go to make contact with this hardware so that the strings, tuners, and bridge are all grounded as well
Oh,
as part of
I
the
didn't know
signal.
that. Okay.
It's important on every guitar.
Wow.
Yeah, there's always some kind of bridge ground. You'll hear it if there's not. It makes noise.
Okay.
So we've got our pairs, we've got our grounds. Let's go ahead and get our controls here. I'll just drop them in the little cavity like that so I can start working. They've provided us with this lovely little diagram, which is great. It's a Telecaster. It's the most simple thing. This does tell us where we're going to wire our pickups to. You can see on the diagram, let me get that in the screen here. You can see on the diagram, it shows us really clearly where we're going to go on the switch. And because everything is wired exactly the way it appears, it couldn't be more clear. With the diagram and the quality of the rig there, I'd say they're doing pretty good. Lots of ways to do this. Sometimes people just poke the wire through and hold it in place somehow. A lot of times I'll kind of hook the wire onto whatever I'm soldering to. So you can see I stuck the wire through and just hooked it around. I'm not tying it. I'm not like looping it around. I'm not doing anything crazy. I just hooked it on there. What that's going to do is keep it still. Which is very important when you solder. All I would need is something like that. I didn't even, have to fill this entire void. Often it's a good practice too, so I'll do that anyway. But this will be fine. But I'll just add a little more so no one gets mad at the internet.
Yeah, people don't get mad at the internet.
No. So that's our neck pickup hot wire connection. You can see that, pretty clearly on our little diagram there. It's going to that first lug on the outer side here. And the ground wire can go anywhere that's going to be grounded. That's pretty easy on a Telecaster. We have a metal control plate here, and you'll notice that we don't have any grounds attached to the back of the pots, jumping from pot to pot. They actually did on this. It's not typically necessary if everything's done right, and we don't need it. We're not going to go adding ground wires pot to pot to switch. Everything is physically touching the metal plate, and that is already giving us continuity between all the parts. As long as something is grounded, everything is grounded.
Okay, got it.
All right. In this instance, they happen to use orange for the ground.
Yeah.
Uncommon, but whatever.
Kind of weird.
It's okay. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and solder the bridge. That's our yellow right here. We'll go ahead and poke the wire through. If you spend some time looking at the switch and moving it and seeing where the metal connects in different positions, it makes very, very clear sense. At least if you have any kind of, a brain for this type of thing. This is a really straightforward thing where I can see that piece of metal is connecting this lug to this lug right now. There's a path inside the switch, and if I move the switch, that piece of metal jumps over here, and now there's a path from here to here. So we use that function with all these connections on top to get all sorts of different things to happen. We're just going to take all these guys and we're going to wind them up.
All the grounds,
and we're going to wind them up together in one wire. And I'll grab my helper here. I have tape on the bottom of this so that it doesn't damage finish. You have to always be worried about damaging finish when you're a luthier.
No kidding. I imagine guitar players get a little concerned about that.
Some
picky
do.
about that.
Some do.
Yeah,
Some do.
right.
I'm just going to solder everything to the back of the volume pot here. Let that sit on there for a second, get it hot. When you solder stuff, you're looking for that to stay shiny. It cools off. It's already cooled off and hardened. If it was a pulled joint, if it was a poor connection, this would fog up as it cooled very quickly. You would see it visibly, very, very obvious.
Okay.
But you can look around there and see that all their connections are nice and shiny. And that's
good to hear.
Yeah.
That's an indication of quality.
It is an indication of quality. It's good work. Most of these look great on this one as well. Some of them are a little less shiny. That's a little foggy. They're all going to work, but really optimally, you get them all that nice shiny color and you've got the best connection. We've got our 3 grounds grounded, the bridge, and then both pickups. And then we've got our hot pickup connections connected. They've already done all the rest of the work for us. So we'll just drop this in.
You were thinking of shortening that cable there, were you not, when we talked
I was.
Yeah.
You're sure right, I was. Let's do it. So this cable obviously is much longer than it has to be. Make sure we can see that in the camera clearly.
Yeah.
But,
About
the jack's,
3 or 4 times longer.
Yeah, the jack's over here, and we've got all that cable. Let's do it there. Just unwind that a little bit. This is great wire. This is the type I like to use. It's a cloth insulated wire, and it's pushed back, and it's pre-tinned. So I don't have to tin anything. I don't have to cut anything. I just grab it, kind of pull the wire out of the way. I can make a little hook if I want. All I need to do is get these guys out. Just heat it enough to pull that wire out of place. This is a solder sucker. There's lots of ways to do this kind of stuff. There's wicks that do this as well. I've got both, but I like this guy. So I'll prep that. You can see the idea. It's just a little plunger.
Yeah, it sucks it in.
Yep. So I'll kind of position it, get it ready, get this hot, and then as soon as I see it sort of liquefy, the solder, I'll pop it. We get all the stuff out of there and make a little hole. We know that this one is the ground because you can see that physically this tab right here is connecting to the that inner metal ring, the lowest inside ring right there. Okay. So that's always going to be our ground.
All right.
We determined that was orange.
Yeah, I think so.
And so I'll just give them a little hook. This is pretty straightforward, but all you want to do is make sure that, you know, nothing's going to touch stuff it's not supposed to touch.
Yeah, it's called a short, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, you know, that wire, no matter which way it moves, there's not enough bare wire exposed to touch anything that it's not supposed to, right? So we've got our jack, we've got our controls. Go ahead and push that into place. We got our new plate here.
Chrome.
So we're going to tighten this nut all the way down. It's just a spacer, right? But it needs to be tight so that it doesn't start moving around and loosen things up. We tighten that nut all the way down. Then we've got our lock washer to give us some friction, some bite. Put that against the plate. Washer on top of the plate, nut on top of the washer. Once I've got it finger tight, I've got a nut driver.
I think we just fasten everything back down, and that's kind of it, huh?
Yeah, that should be it. The smart thing to do 10 minutes ago is before I start screwing things back in and, you know, putting the plate on. It's great to, you know, once you think you have all your wires where they go ahead and plug it in. Just make sure that stuff is working like it should, you know.
Just in case.
That's got a nice strong click. That fits in nicely there. So, okay, pickup switch. We've got a neck pickup. Yep. Both. Bridge.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the way you can test that, you know, physically, if you're not trusting your ears or something's a little weird, you can tap on the pole pieces or the cover of the pickup.
Oh.
So in this position, that's clearly on. That's clearly off.
Yeah.
In middle,
both on.
Both on. Neck,
nothing.
Off. And then we're going to check the volume. I'll just hit a few strings. That's clean. No static, no nothing. Swells nicely. Tone knob, that's got a great taper too. A lot of usability, a lot of range. This tone knob has a good taper. And so rolling that off, you can see that there's like, this is a sound. This is a sound. This is a sound. There's distinctive steps in there, you know.
Right.
I think we're all good here. You can see we're all remounted, you know, they're in there.
Looks nice.
This is nice and tight in there. And we know everything works well. That switch feels great.
Yeah, I thought when I played around with that before you even put it on, I thought, oh, you know, that felt good. The pots felt like they turned nice and smooth.
They do. So, yeah, there's great resistance to them.
Yeah, oh, those there was resistance.
Yeah, and
there was scratchiness on those.
Yeah, there are. And this isn't bad. This is a decent little setup you got here. So you could put this in another guitar.
Oh, okay.
But this is, you know, definitely an upgrade, I would say. So we'll work on the pickups next time.
All right.
So okay.
Nice. Well,
cool.
I guess all I can say is thanks a lot, Sean.
Yeah, of course.
And we look forward next week to the pickups.
I just want to again express my appreciation to Sean of Chris Fleming Guitars for doing this work for me and being gracious enough to let me video him doing it. I do want to speak a little bit about the next video or two, the last video or two actually. Finally getting down to the end of this series, just a couple more things to do. And actually next week was supposed to be the week I was going to finally change out my pickups, which I've been really looking forward to. These are ceramic pickups. I find them a little thin. I find them a little tinny. I'm going to replace them with Alnico 2 noiseless vintage pickups by Fender. So that's going to be exciting. However, along the way, Sean gave me some bad news. That's probably going to make me detour here just a little bit before we get to the pickups. And that is, in all the work he's been doing my guitar the last couple weeks, he noticed and let me know that the neck is bowed pretty much here in the middle. Not good news. And in fact, I can tell now that especially the low E string buzzes pretty much everywhere. Now, I could, of course, replace the entire neck, spend several $100s doing that, but Sean actually had a good idea. Fretboard. And this way, especially here in the middle where it bows up a little bit, reduce the height of the frets. And therefore, even with a little bow in the neck, it still should be playable and work just fine. So I'm probably going to do that this next video instead of the pickups.
I still would like to leave the pickups as the kind of grand final climax of this whole video series. So if you join me next week, you're going to be able to watch Sean do his magic on my fretboard. Okay, with that said, I think it's a wrap on this video this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you look forward to next week's video where we're going to fix this fretboard up. Anyway, keep it real. I'll see you next week,
And everyone take care.